Hola, estrellitas. This is Sol,
And this is Luna, and we are Chillonas.
pero badass.
You're live on air.
Luna,
Yes, Sol.
is toxic masculinity real?
Oh my God, yes, it is.
Why? Why? Tell me, like, what is it that you have calculated to
So,
believe?
okay, before I even answer that, I have always had like an issue with this, not in the sense where I don't think it's real, but in the sense that I need you to define it for me because I'm always looking it up. I'm always like wanting to know the definition because I'm so fucking technical sometimes. So, can you please give me some insight?
Is it because you have different ideas of what it is, or because it's literally just confusing?
No, it's because I have different ideas of it. And for me, I think it's one thing, but I
Could you share one idea what you believe it is?
so for me, toxic masculinity relates to it's like the same thing as machismo. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right now, there's no right or wrong answers. I
Okay.
just want to hear more of your opinion,
Okay.
and then we can go from there.
Okay, so for me, yeah, toxic masculinity goes back to like the machismo culture in Latin America. And an example, I guess, of it for me when I think of toxic masculinity would be specifically how okay, the abortion laws going on in Texas right now.
Got it.
That situation, like that for me is toxic masculinity because it's men controlling the decision for a woman and controlling like what should be happening with their bodies instead of giving us a voice and the opportunity to speak up for ourselves.
It's interesting how you describe it because for a long time, my understanding was toxic masculinity and machismo were the same thing, but they're actually not. Definition of toxic masculinity is a set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men regarded as having a negative impact on men and on society as a whole. And when you talk about machismo is more like it's strong or aggressive masculine pride and the belief of being superior to women. Does that kind of help you understand a little bit the differences?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the same thing. And
Okay.
I think that the issue in toxic masculinity is in our society more than anything because it's pretty much like the expectations and the beliefs that of men are supposed to be a specific way. It's for me, the way I think about it, it's suppression of feelings for men, and a lot of it has to do with their upbringing. And then you got the upbringings in families, you got society telling you your specific way, right? For example, women are constantly being reminded through magazines, commercials, ads, influencers, throughout social media
Yeah.
of the pressures of what we as women are supposed to look like or
Okay, yeah.
expected to look like. Mira, this is what the woman looks like. And if you don't look like it automatic just falls into that.
It's like the beauty standards of women and how
Exactly.
men created it. So that would
Yes.
be toxic masculinity.
Right. It's
Okay.
more like toxic masculinity is more within a man. This is an example I really hated is when they're like, don't be a pussy.
Yeah.
Do you comprehend how powerful a pussy really is?
Right.
And how it's not meant to be derogatory, but you want to act like it's nothing. Bitch, it could eat you up
Como
and spit you
decía Jenny
out.
Rivera, no tengo los huevos, tengo los ovarios.
And when you talk about machismo, it's more direct oppression towards women. It's being the macho de la casa, it's believing to be superior. It's more common, like you said, within Latinx communities and families.
It's funny because that it like reminds me of this term that we learned when I was in one of my Latinx classes at City College of San Francisco. One of my professors talked about it. And I wanted to ask you, do you know what Marianismo is?
You and I have talked about it a little bit, but I'm
Mhm.
not super familiar with it.
Okay, so let me just explain to you a little bit about what it is. So, Marianismo is a gender role, and it was basically created from the Catholic Church, and it stems from the image of the Virgin Mary and how she was submissive and how she was pure, right? And so, what Marianismo does is it intertwines with machismo. So machismo is like that mentality of like oppressing women, right? And like el hombre es el que manda. And Marianismo is that that cultural like expectation of a woman should be submissive and should be passive and she should be sexually pure. And so, what I found interesting when I was kind of looking this up to give you a little bit more insight on it is that machismo and Marianismo were actually created together. And it was a model for gender relations. So they were like hand in hand. So para el machismo tenía que ver una mujer que era marianista. And that's kind of like where you look at, for example, in my family, like when you look at the man and the woman, it's very much that el hombre es bien machista y la mujer is like very passive, very submissive to him, le hace caso de todo lo que él dice. And so, yeah, I thought it was very interesting because I didn't know that machismo was created to be hand in hand with Marianismo.
It's interesting that you bring that up because it's something that's not commonly talked about. Like you hear machismo left and right, but you don't really hear marianismo. I think an example is like my aunt who talks about my cousin, how she's going to beauty school and wants to learn how to do nails, right? But my aunt's issue is that my cousin won't have time to cook, that she won't have time to tend to her husband, tend to the kids, and go to school. O sea,
Hmm.
instead of being encouraging or instead like, no, mija, tú sí puedes, yo con qué te ayudo, ¿cómo le hacemos? No, está más preocupada de que va a poder lavar, va a poder cuidar a los hijos, va a poder hacer de comer. O sea, I'm sorry, is it just her in this relationship? Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't take just one person to have kids, have a house, have a whole load of laundry to do for her to do it
Mhm.
by herself. Like, that's just bullshit, too. But because of this belief, no matter how much you have to back yourself up with facts or reason, it doesn't matter because they're so stuck onto this way of thinking and it's what's been normalized in their lives that they just continue with it. They don't question it.
Yeah, it's like their ideology of like what a woman should be.
Right. And it's interesting that you brought up Marianismo because micromachismo isn't talked about a lot either. I think I recently learned that through a video I was watching that took place in Mexico and it's in a lot of
Mhm.
protesting for the feminist movement. Micromachismo is pretty much like the subtle acts of violence that take place on a daily life, like those subconscious actions that
Mhm.
happen on a regular that we also have come to normalize
Yeah,
and
like
believe.
we're desensitized to it almost.
Exactly. And then there's four classifications for it too. The first one is utilitarian. It's pretty much like the belief of gender roles, right? Like, oh, tú eres mujer, tú sabes cocinar. Es donde a good woman cooks. A good woman knows how to cook. Good woman is cleaning. A good woman's doing laundry.
Yeah, okay. And not putting
Okay.
it away 2 weeks later.
Well, no. You know what I do? I'll go and wash with my husband and we wash together. I love doing that. Both do it together, get it done, and come home.
Yeah.
And so I like it that way too because, we're doing it together. Plus,
Mhm.
it's our bonding time. If you work together, you could do it. But my aunt was just so persistent with my cousin and how, like, she can't get it all done and how's she going to do it going to school too? It's the problem. It's the problem within Latinx families, at least, even just the way you and I have grown up. But
Yeah.
anyway, I
So
totally
utilitarian. What's
that's the
the
first
next
one. Second
classification?
one is hidden, as in it's not forcing physically, but using feeling, almost like manipulation. Just like body language, like sin decir mucho type of thing, or how men make women feel, right? That's another
Okay.
one. The third one is crisis related. It's pretty much gaslighting, por decir que se agarren ellos los hombres de que pues yo soy el hombre de la casa, tú tienes que hacer lo que diga yo, for example.
Ugh, that's
It
gross.
just it's just gross getting out of
This
my
is
mouth.
set right with me.
Number 4, coercive. It's limitations of women's freedom. Por decir, no saber cómo manejar. It's having that type of control, right? De
El
que
control del dinero, like the finances and all that.
exactly. The men not letting the women pay a bill
That
because
irks me so much.
why? Tell
I'm
me why.
independent. Because I think that's so like it's funny because I've actually had these conversations with my partner about when we decide to come together, our finances are not going to be together. It is literally going to be equally 50-50. You get to keep your own bank account, I keep my own bank account. Compra lo que tú quieres as long as your responsibilities are paid for, and me too.
The thing is, así estás ahorita because you guys don't live together. I'm not saying así no va a ser, but of course we say, es que vamos a hacer así y ya. But because you want to keep this, balance between you two. But ya cuando vivas juntos, a veces uno sin querer, you fall into traditional ways. And so it's a matter of catching yourself and continuously having these conversations. Si no, hasta él y tú al último se agarran in this routine where se les olvida.
You're like, oh shit,
It's a micromachismo, right? Unfortunately, because you and I grew up believing it's
normalized,
normal, right?
But see, that's the thing for me. For me, that specific, those finances, for me specifically, they're like a deal breaker because of what I saw my mom and dad go through when they split. My dad ended up taking all the money out of their bank account. He ended up taking all the money out of their savings, and she was left with nothing. And that was their money together.
She could have fought that, did she?
She didn't until they went to court.
There's a difference. You eres más cabrona in many ways. So I know you would have been like, no, motherfucker. Not just yours. Because also your mom being mentally not fully there with, with
a Marianista.
You would have stepped in and said, and that's a choice, that's a decision. That's where you would have stepped in and said, you know what, no. Because para que digas tú, es que tu papá les quitó todo. Sí, pero no. Porque tu mamá se lo dejó.
Yeah.
Right? And it could be that falls into that Marianismo, like mentality, right? Where pues ya así quedé. And it's like, with
it's
the self-esteem.
Very much that victim. Okay, so now I want to ask you a question. How did machismo affect you growing up?
En todo.
En todo. It's still affecting me. If you or anyone you know have been a victim
Dial
of machismo.
1-800.
Choke that hoe. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck that motherfucker. Oh my god. Machismo in my life no existió.
Oh girl. Te la creo.
Oh man, con decirte de que I saw my dad a few weeks ago, and I just got married back in July. Tell me why. I hadn't colored my hair because I did so much bleaching and so much dyeing that my scalp couldn't take it. I have a very sensitive scalp. And so I was like, you know what? I gotta give my beautiful hair a break from coloring some more. So I've been letting my hair grow. And Soul has got some white gray hair, girl. Tengo mis mechones.
Beautiful.
These are my natural mechones, and they don't bother me. I think what bothers me about it is just the line of demarcation where you can see like where it stops, like where it's been colored. That's the part that bothers me, not the fact that I have gray hair. But my dad saw me. And he's looking at my hair, and I'm like, this man is looking at me real hard.
You're like, what?
¿Qué quieres? ¿Qué me miras? And what did he say? He's like, oh, ¿no te has pintado el pelo, ¿verdad? And I'm just like, what? No. And I know this about my dad. He looked at my husband with this look of, así la tiene. Like, ¿cómo te diré? Like, my dad, I think because I know the way my dad is, that judgy, very
You were reading his mind.
Yeah, because I know that's how it was with my mom. Very like, oh, she let herself go. And I feel like he was looking at me with that look. De que ya me casé, pues ya, like, que fácil, like, yeah, she's letting herself go so quick. Very, very judgy, right?
Wow.
And the expectation because I'm married and because my husband won't like that or he's not okay with that, or I have
Mhm.
to look good for my husband.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
totally get what you're saying.
And would you consider that machismo?
Hell yeah.
Right. And so this is
That's
my dad's
micro machismo. Those are the
And he's-
attitudes and the actions.
So we both can agree on that. My dad literally looked at me and he asked me that, and I told him what happened, whatever. And my husband stepped in and he defended me. And he was like, oh, it's because, her scalp, blah, blah, blah.
He's
And
like, I already have an answer for you, sir.
right. And he had my back, which is, I love him to death for it. But my dad brought it up again, maybe a good 20, 30 minutes later after we've talked about that.
He was not okay with it.
We had 20 other motherfucking conversations. Y ahí viene de vuelta con, entonces vas a ir a pintarte el pelo?
I was not
fucking-
playing.
Girl, my neck almost cracked, turning over, look at him like, the hell? I was all, mi contestación era de que, ¿y lo vas a pagar tú?
Oh, period. Because if you
You
are,
want to pay the $220 that my stylist charges to get this beautiful long luscious hair done? And he was like, no, pues nomás decía.
okay.
That type of shit, girl.
We're fighting. Those are fighting words, Dad.
He chose violence that day. And that's recent. This is like a few weeks ago. O sea, and this is from my dad. And it's almost like
Se
even
pasa,
different
señor.
things.
Se pasa.
Tell me about it. And even like with my mom, like there's different things and occasions that she's the one who made me carry a purse because I'm a girl. I'm supposed to carry a purse. I hated purses. I hated them
Girl.
with a passion. I was like, why can't I just wear pants with some pockets?
With pockets.
And stick my
period.
shit in there and then call it a day. Pero no, se enojaba. So yo cargaba una bolsa sin nada, dude. There was nothing in there.
Fuck this purse.
Your purse.
You know what's funny is that I think my parents, I literally grew up completely opposite. My dad was very he was machista in the other sense. Machista in the sense where he was more controlling about what I wore. I could not wear makeup at all. I couldn't paint my nails. Oh my God. It reminds me of
Wow.
one time. Yeah, one time I wore red nail polish. I was in high school. Y me pinté las uñas rojas.
Ooh, so provocative.
Yes, girl. But you know what he told me?
Oh,
He
God.
was like, solo las muchachas que se paran en la calle, en las esquinas, se ponen y tienen su bolsita y con su chicle tienen ese color.
Wow, so indirect.
Yeah. And I'm like, I looked at him. I was like, you just got out of church, sir. Just came out of church. How are you going to say that to me?
His ass needed to be dunked in the holy water. This salió con tu
Man,
chamuco.
right? I was like, girl, you need to go back. But I was
It's
like,
God Day.
yes, I was so upset because I was like, and I remember telling my mom was like, "Está loco tu papá," but I'm like, that's it. We're not gonna have a
You got-
conversation about this. So, but
Can we
it
have a
also-
family meeting?
Right, but see, that's the thing. It also it stems from when they first got married. So let me give you a little backstory. My mom, okay, she was like in her late 20s and she was a hot ass bitch. She was. I'm serious. My mom was a freaking size 9,
Ooh.
but she wasn't a size
Get it.
9 because of her tummy. She was a size 9 because of her ass. Like my mom had so many curves. She had big boobs, very curvy, slim waist, freaking huge butt, nice legs. She's petite, so she's very curvy. And so she would go out dancing all the time, every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, girl. And this is before I was born. So when my mom met my dad, they met dancing. So he met my mom very put together, very cute, very, nonchalantly. She was, showing off her little boob line. So definitely era bien vanidosa, very much taking care of herself. She wore makeup. She did her hair all the time. And so once she married my dad, not even through church, it was through civil wedding. I found out that my mom was not allowed to wear her single gout clothes no more. My dad went to the store y la llevó a comprarse turtlenecks.
He took her?
Yeah, he took her to the store and he was like, "You're buying turtlenecks." So my mom wore turtlenecks
Stop.
for the first 5 years of their marriage.
Stop.
I'm
Really?
serious, yes. Que porque él no quería que nadie la mirara así. But okay, you and I both know you wearing a turtleneck. We're busty girls, y'all. You and I wear a turtleneck, our boobs are gonna look huge. But yeah,
That
like,
ain't fooling nobody.
right. And so he was like,
Especially if
and
you got like, you know, sizable
mhm,
bust.
mhm.
Wow.
And she also couldn't wear jeans that showed off her butt too much. She couldn't wear skirts or pantyhose.
Stop.
I'm serious, girl. And so it reminds me of like when I started, getting into that phase where I wanted to look, take care of myself a little bit more. I wanted to maybe put on some mascara or maybe do my eyebrows. I was in high
Catch a little more
school.
attention.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
no, it was like absolutely not. And even I think my senior year, it was my senior year and I was like, can I wear makeup now? Like literally asking, can I put on mask? And for me, makeup wasn't even como tú piensas, like a full face of foundation or this crazy eyeshadow. No, like it was like I just want to put on mascara and color my eyebrows a little bit. And it was a no. Like
Wow.
absolutely not. And so I would sneak makeup. My aunt would buy it for me and I would have it in my backpack because my aunt's thing was like, I would rather buy it for you and have you not share makeup with other girls because that's something that like your eye health, hygiene. And so yeah, it just reminds me of that part of like machismo and like that control. And you know what's crazy is that aspect of like machista culture also affects women and how they see themselves, and it affects their self-confidence and their self-esteem. And then in turn, women always have to look for men to be able to give them their self-worth.
Unfortunately, I believe they're confused between confidence and being a man, quote unquote, where men don't, men that don't have confidence, they think that, como te diré? I'm trying to think of an example. When a man is trying to hit on a woman, right? They're trying to pick him up at the
Mhm.
bar or
Mhm.
wherever, and they try to talk to this woman, and this woman rejects him. So in their mind, I can't talk to women because they don't want men. They make it difficult for men and this and that, right?
Mhm.
But it's their confidence. Because they're not confident, it's almost like they want to blame women for them feeling the way that they do. But it's all just within. It's all within their own confidence,
Yeah,
right?
it's
On how
it's
they feel
almost
about themselves.
like it's almost like when you get catcalled and then when you tell them, "Oh, like no les prestas atención," and you walk past them and they're like, "Fine, you fucking bitch." Like, okay, because I didn't listen to you. Your whole ass chiflándome. I'm not a dog. I'm not an animal, sir.
Right. 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 Right.
You're just mad because your ego got hurt.
I think that men think that being a man is almost like being like the alpha. They're
Yeah, that's very much the thought. That's
like it,
very much what society like
right.
engraves in us.
They don't want to be perceived as animals, but they'll bring up how they're strong like a tiger,
Mm,
or they're the
mhm,
alpha male, like if they
mhm,
were a wolf pack or whatever,
mhm.
right? So they use these examples como si no saben cómo
Like a
actuar,
lion. Uh-huh.
as if, ¿qué era una cosa, por ejemplo, that they want to go off, oh, it's instinct, it's manly instinct. It's your dumbass's fault. Just
Mhm.
because a woman is wearing something provocative, no one's forcing you to act on it. Fucking échate un taco de ojo. Be a normal
Yeah.
motherfucking person
Mhm, mhm.
and look, but
Yes.
be respectful.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It's
mean it's bad to look. I look all the time. My husband looks all the
period.
time.
I look all the time too. I'm like, oh damn, that's a badass bitch.
Right. And she looks good. Hasta
Yeah.
compliment them,
Yes,
right?
like damn, her booty is looking right.
But know the fine line of
Yeah.
respect. And
Mhm.
a problem within society is if a woman is wearing something provocative y luego algo le pasa, they want to blame her because of what
Yeah.
she wore.
Mhm.
But it's like, who takes up on the action? For example, in this example, it would be men,
Yeah.
who act on their, I guess I can't even find the word, but it's
Their
men
quote
who,
unquote instinct.
right, right, right.
Mhm.
And it's like, if you think of an example, is drunk driving.
Mhm.
People don't blame the alcohol.
Yeah. They blame
People
the
blame the
person.
driver,
Mhm.
right? Are you gonna blame the woman because she wore something? No, it's the man who decided to do what he did. He's the one who
Yeah.
took action on it.
Okay, can I say something? I
Yes.
feel like because our society is very much ran by men and ran by that masculine energy, it's almost easier to blame a woman because if you start blaming the man and you start looking at that and they start looking at that as a whole, you have to look, it intertwines so deeply with other issues, and you'll have to start changing our entire system, our entire way of being, our entire como existence basically. And that's why I feel like that's why they do it. That's why they think que, oh, es que la mujer tuvo la culpa por lo que tenía puesto, porque andaba enseñando mucho chichi, mucha nalga, o mira nomás. But I feel like it is that. It's because it's much easier to blame a woman for what they wear and try to restrict that than to sit there and blame a man.
It's having control. It's the
Hmm.
power. It's a power
It's a trip.
thing.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. And if you think about it, like if you go back to when we're children, like even the way adults talk to us as kids. Por ejemplo, una niña is like, ay, mira, like,
Hmm.
qué chiquita, qué
Ay,
bonita.
ternura.
Sí, like, eso es más como,
Es
like,
con
she's
más
super
delicadez.
frágil. Ajá.
Ajá, es una flor.
Exactly. Look at that. Ajá. And with boys, it's like, ay, qué fuerte. Ay, mira, va a
Mm,
ser grandote.
mhm.
O sea, that's already started, right? Like, why are you laughing?
Qué
I'm for real.
grandote.
Cochina.
Sorry. But yes.
That's Marianismo, girl.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
just kidding.
sorry. We're
I'm just
desensitized
kidding.
to it.
I'm
No,
just
but
kidding. I'm
yeah.
just kidding. No, but like those are my examples, right? I mean, of
Yeah,
between the two of us here, like it does start with the way they're being talked to. So of course, it's like boys are supposed to play with cars.
exactly.
Boys are supposed to do manly things, and
Hmm.
it's like what is being manly
Yeah.
in that mindset is you're expected to know how to do hands-on things, and and like even just the sad part of I've heard stories about friends that their dads took them to prostitutes
Hmm.
to have their first sexual experience
Yeah,
to
I've
give
heard that too, and that's gross.
it's sad. I mean,
Yeah.
saying power to the sex workers, I have nothing against.
Yes, no,
It's
but
just
it's not, it's that's not the aspect that I'm saying is gross. The aspect that I'm saying is gross is that the fact that they even think about doing that they think about, oh, my son has to have his
that
first experience and oh, he's a man
the
and no,
machista mindset,
yeah,
right? To believe
that's
that.
what's gross.
Because my question is the dad taking their daughter to have their first
All
sexual
right,
encounter?
like I need to be experienced too, sir.
And I want my sexual explored.
Yeah.
But it goes back to que dirán. I think that
Hmm.
because I think about it and I asked my husband, I was like, the root of it, like, why? Why does it all begin? Why is it so important to carry on these quote unquote masculine traits? And he's like, it's lo que dirán. It's
Hmm.
the whole idea behind like, well, if my son chooses to do dance classes instead of sports, like, ¿qué van a decir? ¿Qué van a
Yeah.
decir de él? ¿Van a hablar de él? ¿Es que van a decir que no es hombrecito? ¿Van a decir que all
Yes.
these terrible things, right? Or like mujeres or daughters that they don't want to do makeup or they don't want to do,
Yeah.
those more quote unquote girly things. And they want to learn about mechanics. They want to learn how to build a bike or, whatever it is. What is their focus? Is it
Yeah.
really like in ¿de verdad tienen en mente a sus hijos o tienen en mente qué les van a decir?
Yeah.
Like, what's harder for them? It's harder for them to defend against the people that surround them than defend their children to do what makes them happy
Mhm.
and for the well-being of the well-being of them.
Yeah, of the whole child, basically. And see, the thing is, like, something that's positive about all of this and us being able to talk about it is that I've mentioned before, Estrellitas, that I was a preschool teacher for 8 years. So, something that we actually were exploring a lot within the past maybe 3 or 4 years was the fact that because we're so desensitized to toxic masculinity, we don't realize that as teachers and as adults, we influence and pass those traits on to children. And so, one of the focuses for preschool children was allowing them to explore the whole classroom, right? And so, when I talk about that, I mean, like Sol said, letting girls be a part of like the mechanics, letting the boys go into the kitchen, into the dramatic play area and be able to dress up. If they want to put on a dress, okay, like what's the problem with that? They're exploring, they're being able to connect to people and women in their lives and allow themselves to kind of play with that role a little bit. And I think that it's something that it's awesome that it's being taken into consideration and that we're teaching our children as well as teaching ourselves as adults how to normalize that not just women and not just men need to have specific roles, that
Gender roles.
yeah,
Right.
that we don't need
You're
those
on
gender
point.
roles. Exactly. And so
That's awesome that you gave that opportunity in classes because it already is breaking that
yeah.
idea that they
Hmm.
grow up with at home.
And the hard part is, though, is having to explain that to parents, especially because where I worked, it was in a low income community, and our main population of students were Latino children. And a lot of the kids are first gen.
Oh, I
So
see.
when parents would come in, they'd be like, oh, pues mi hijo solo le gusta dibujar. Like, ¿qué es eso? Que solo me trae dibujos a la casa. Or they would come in and they
Oh
would look through
man.
like the little window in our door and see that their kids were playing in the dramatic play area. And they would tell me, no deje que mi hijo juegue allí, deje que vaya a otro lugar a jugar. And I'm like, unfortunately for you, I can't do that because I'm not going to go into interrupting that child's play because that's how they're learning. I'm not going to take away from their experience because of what you have in your mind. I didn't say that exactly, but I phrased it in a way.
I was like, dang, Luna, you went in.
Yeah, but porque no podemos, but it, you just tell them, ¿sabe qué? Su hijo está aprendiendo a explorar, está aprendiendo cómo asimilarse con el resto de las identidades que él ve en su vida. So, si usted lo ve en la cocina, es tal vez porque él pasa mucho tiempo con usted y él le gusta y le
Clever.
atrae, y yes, le atrae lo que está pasando en la cocina. So, tal vez usted como mamá lo puede incluir en a la rutina de la mañana o la rutina de la tarde cuando usted está haciendo de comer, que le ayude, aprenda a hacer cosas saludables, aprender a hacer cosas por sí mismo, things like that, you know? And I think that that's when we started hearing about this, it was funny because there was a lot of backlash, especially from like the male teachers. But it was really cool, and some women teachers too, especially like the older ones. But I thought it was really cool because we're detaching from that stigma of boys can't cry and they have to be tough and they have to control everything and oh they have to wrestle each other and this and that. And oh no, girls can only be dainty and cute. No, I like that we're taking away from that stigma and attaching those gender roles to them. Like girls could be tough. Fuck, I grew up being a tomboy my entire life. And so I grew up with more guy friends and girlfriends. That was just it. And so I like that because it's allowing for children to feel welcome and allowing for them to explore different parts of themselves.
I mean, power to you to have been able to have those conversations in the most calm and the most polite way you could have, especially for what was going on. But going back to the emotions part, that was the problem before and continues to be the problem
Mhm.
about emotions, even just in general within like our Latinx communities, how we continue to repress emotions. And because of that, there's so much mental damage from that
Yeah.
that it's also what's caused generational trauma that continues to carry on, which eventually we'll talk more into about. But in this case, with most men, they grow up believing what their dads are acting, saying,
Yeah.
doing. It's all of it, right? And so being emotional or having emotions or being open about your emotions is not a manly act.
Yeah.
It's almost like think of a snowball effect, right? Where you have this act already of I can't express myself, I can't share my feelings, and it's just rolling down, and you're just
Yeah.
continuously
Y se
throwing
hace
into
más
it.
grande, más grande, más grande.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what causes even bigger problems.
Yeah.
But de tanto querer aguantárselo, and because a man does not share what they're feeling, a man does not cry,
Yeah.
all these, false beliefs,
Mhm.
which encourages them to continue those patterns,
Yeah.
and they're unhealthy. And I think about, for example, consent. It used to not be talked about like it does now. Como por decir, cuando un hombre le ruega a una mujer, como sea para bailar, sea para to go on a date, or ándale, vamos a
To
salir.
kiss.
Right.
Yeah.
El hombre le está ruegue y ruegue to the woman. When should they stop? When is the halt? If you're already saying no, but it is continuing. Pero because in our
It has to
culture,
cause like a woman to get out of character and be like, a chingada tu madre, ya te dije que no.
but isn't that ideal? But here's the thing: you got some women who are afraid. I like that you say that, but not all women can defend themselves in that way because they're in fear of what the results may be. What if this man is one of those I think I'm an alpha type dude?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like they can't risk like them getting upset, or they're so worried about their own safety that they feel they have to figure out a way to control or to manage the feelings
Mhm.
of this man who obviously is not giving up, but
Yeah.
is not respecting boundaries, not
Mhm.
respecting consent.
Yeah.
It goes on to the whole machista way of thinking things, right? Because I've seen it happen more and more in Mexico, for example, when I would go visit y en las fiestas que para el baile y eso que lo otro y se notaba. And then if you watch older movies, you got movies like, ¿cómo se llama? I can't even think of the name, but movies like the one, what's the name of the movie with the guy that carries a boombox on his shoulders?
Oh, I know which one
Chava.
you're talking about, but I'm not
Okay,
yeah.
so that movie is supposed to be a classic, right?
Mm.
But if you really think about it, in that movie, this dude stalked her. This dude would not leave her alone. O sea, she said no, she was good, pero él estaba terco. O sea, dude, you're a stalker. At that point, like, you're harassing. You're
Yeah.
not, no puedes decir de que, oh my God, es que tiene que rogar, tiene que,
Yeah,
no,
no.
dude, like, tampoco. Because if you think of, if you switch the two, right? Where it's the woman que anda rogando al guy, like
Mhm.
at
Ay,
that
está
point,
de rogona.
ay, pero mira lo que yo puedo, mira lo que
Mhm.
yo tengo.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
it goes into almost like body count. It goes into
Mhm.
like this alpha
Mira cómo
thing.
la
Soy bien
tengo.
bueno. Soy
Yeah.
right, right,
Soy
right.
el bombón asesino.
Mira, andan atrás de mí. But they don't have to worry about their safety.
Yeah, they don't. And that, it's funny. That's what I tell my partner all the time. He makes fun of me for locking all the doors at the gas station and only leaving my open. He's like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "You don't know what it's like to be a woman." And he's like, he's like, "You're with me. You don't have to do it." I'm like, "No, still, like, if I can avoid anything happening at all costs, I'm gonna do it because we've been taught that shit. When we used to walk on campus at night, what would we do when we would leave the library 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? We'd literally walk with our keys in between our knuckles.
Yep.
And that's just because of that toxic masculinity within our society and how we grow up.
Yeah. I used to have to drive you or you would drive me to my
Yeah,
car
exactly,
and
exactly.
then stay until one is in the car until we
Turns
drive
it
off
on,
and then
exactly.
call each other. You good? Yeah,
Mhm.
you good? O sea, it
Mhm.
was those extra steps.
Yeah, and then make sure that we got home safely and walked inside our houses safely.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it's definitely very that.
Don't get me wrong. I think I don't want us to come off as if we're like attacking men because
Yeah,
first
we're
of
not.
all, not all men are like that.
Mhm.
Second of all, they're going through mental struggles as well
Mhm.
in trying to maneuver their emotions, especially when they haven't been taught how to do so. I'm
Mental
not going
health,
to
Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Speak.
I agree that are being taught not to cry, that are being taught that
Yeah,
tienes
to
que ser
suppress their emotions.
uh-huh. It's like that's the beginning of them learning their development and how to handle their emotions, right?
Yeah, that's where it stems from. And it's hard
Uh-huh.
to show any love. Like it's like I tell my partner for a long time. It's like you only have two emotions, like either hella mad or even when you're happy, it's like it's a very bland happy. I'm like,
Mhm.
I need to see more than that. And it's taken him some time, but it's and a lot of talks
Of course,
for
it's
him to
repetitive.
be for him to be able to even kind of branch out into different emotions and to express like outwardly express those emotions because I think you're right. I think that our culture and our society as a whole have definitely affected men in the sense where they can't express themselves. They have like a very like soldado way of thinking and
Mhm.
that um they can only be seen as an alpha and not weak at all because if they show any sign of weakness that automatically makes them like how we were talking about earlier, that phrase that they love to use, the pussy, you know.
Don't be a pussy.
Yeah,
If they only knew how powerful a pussy really is, like it's
exactly.
a compliment. It's not,
Right.
yeah,
Don't even take it as an insult, boo.
bitch.
But I think that because of that, I think that that's what also causes, like you were saying earlier, like it snowballs. And for men, it just builds and builds and builds on top of each other. And like anyone, we're all human, right? And like anyone, we have like that breaking point. And for everybody, it's different. And it sucks because a lot of these, traumatic experiences can be avoided if only we learn to talk about our feelings and to talk about our emotions. I feel like because of this, like it's also caused, como daño entre familias, and it's caused, like in Mexican culture specifically and Latino culture that I grew up around, it's very much normalized to, oh, eres machista, si tu vieja te habla, like te rezonga, like to, backhand slap her. Like it's, and maybe the man at first when he does it, he doesn't want to, but because he wants to be seen as a man, lo va a hacer. And that's the sad part about it, that because our society and our culture is very much driven with that toxicness, it causes for families to suffer.
I've had these conversations with my husband
Mhm.
often because his dad is very machista.
Okay.
He was the type of husband to, después de comer, he would leave his plate on the table. Like,
Ugh.
ni, ni recogía su plato, right? It's difficult to hear, but that's really common. And my husband has made it clear that he doesn't want to follow that path. He wants to break the cycle within, between his family, like his parents to ours. He doesn't want to be that way. And his thing is like, it's always been difficult for him to express his feelings. He's always isolated himself and always
Mm.
pulled away from having deeper conversations or because of that same like misunderstanding of how to deal with your feelings.
Yeah.
And I repeatedly have these conversations to at least to try to dismantle what has been engraved in our minds, both of us,
Yeah.
because my dad carried a lot of characteristics of machismo, but they weren't as heavy as his.
And the great thing about this, though, as we're continuing to see change, is that we're able to have these conversations like with our
True.
partners.
True.
And I feel like that is also empowering women and empowering men to be able to create healthy homes and healthy friendships and relationships between each other.
And encouraging it. I think
Yeah.
even just encouraging conversations with anyone, whether it's a man or a woman or any
Yeah.
person.
Or hombre con hombre y mujer con mujer, o, lo que sea.
O sea, putting aside the fear, because first of all, we've already grown up in fear.
Yeah.
And having these conversations will help normalize
Mm-hmm.
how not normal this was.
Literally. So, Sol, I know our goal is always to give advice and to start a conversation, but I want to know what you want our estrellitas to take away from this conversation.
I believe our goal here was to open a different view for you to see out this window and say, wow, there's a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
Not because you need to blame yourself, not because you need to blame anyone. I think it's focusing more, shift that energy towards you helping yourself. It's making the changes to help you grow.
Mhm.
It's realizing what those red flags are and seeing that they're not normal. I think that because even you and I growing up with what we went through, I went through my pretty much my whole life believing I've been wrong. I carry shame. I've carried guilt in so many different ways. I've always felt like I was always walking on eggshells. And finally, after having conversations, after being open to learn about my family's ways and the way my culture has believed to do things, I now realize that I am not wrong. And everything that happened, a lot of the things that happened, a lot of the things that I went through were not okay. But because it's normal, I didn't know it. So our goal here is for you to help you see
Yeah.
what's not okay and to see that it's not your fault, it's not just you,
Mhm.
and to help yourself break these habits, to change your way of seeing things, because we can't change our past, we can't change what has happened,
Mhm.
unfortunately, but we can change the way we see moving forward.
Mhm.
And we can change with a lot of work. Eso sí, it's
Yeah.
not easy. It takes a
It's
lot of
easy to
work.
say, but it's a lot of work.
Right. It's making changes for yourself and working hard on giving yourself a whole new perspective, giving yourself a whole new way of thinking and being a cycle breaker.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. I agree that it's allowing for you to see those red flags and creating awareness. I want
Throw
to,
those motherfuckers out.
yes, red flag, adios. So with that, estrellitas, I just want to say thank you for listening and continue shining your light and let your stories be heard.
Give us a follow and please subscribe.